What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Play the Fights on College Football Show. Conference Championship Week is here. Boy, oh boy, we have the mid-3 represented as Iowa State takes on Arizona State in the Big 12 title. Jake, I'll go to you first. Conference Championship Week, your team's in action. Are we a little nervous? Are we excited? How are we feeling to start the show tonight?
Crossing hump day. Kind of, we're now closer to game day than we were on Sunday when we did our reaction episode or whatever. We're getting there. I don't know. I haven't really been listening to a ton of stuff all week yet. I was a little surprised. I don't know. Like Cover 3 touched on it a little bit, but none of the stuff I've been listening to, like national media wise, it's just kind of like, nah. Like I knew everything that you're kind of saying. It's pretty bland and basic, but I guess that's the Big 12 or whatever. But I think Friday is finally when I'll start to get pretty excited. Doesn't really feel like it at this point, honestly.
The nervousness will set in as Iowa State embarks to get their first conference championship, maybe ever. Am I wrong in saying that, or is it?
I think
we 46.
I think we won the the Iowa River Conference in 1912 or something like that. We have one of those trophies sitting around somewhere.
Shout out to the Iowa River Conference. Rebirth it. It could use a rebirth, but that's a big one. Obviously, we have other big games. Atlanta and the SEC title. Our boy GA is in the comments already. He said he's within a split household, so I assume the girlfriend, wife must be an either Georgia or Texas fan. That's a tough look. That's a tough watch. You're going to have to deal with your significant other cheering for their conference title game. And I know I'm not with you, GA. I hope Nebraska doesn't go to the Pinstripe Bowl. We appreciate you being here. Drop a comment if you're in here. Let us know what you're watching conference championship wise, who you're cheering for. Drop a like, hit the subscribe button. We're nearing 800. Let's hit that mark. JP, how are we feeling tonight? We're ready to break down the Power Four, and then our G5 game of the week will reveal at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with this week with conference titles, this is the first time we'll experience it with the 12-team playoff. And for some reason, I understand the sentiment was more games mattered, but when games matter to an 11-1 team to get into a 12-team playoff field, that angers me tremendously. And so you just kind of look at this thing and you're like, man, all you have to do is win. So you can tell your team that and roll with that. Just win the game. Don't, leave it up to these guys in suits in a boardroom that are they say they don't look at stickers on helmets. You're looking at stickers on helmets. So I want this weekend to be full of good conference titles. Obviously, we're used to the Big Ten in the last couple of years, at least, with the West not being quite up to snuff and the East kind of running that thing. Big 12 games usually live up to hype. Last year's was one of them that did not. No Pac-12, which always seemed to be exciting and got us rolling into the 14 playoff. ACC has had some good ones. Other times it's felt, up and down, but I'm pumped to see these teams because it'll be the last time we see these specific teams in full, as you've already seen the portal start to open up. So if you're looking at these teams and you're really curious on what their next 3 months look like, I would just say enjoy what your team looks like now, because come Monday, half that team may not be there.
Every spread is it's less than 6 points, I think.
And I think
the highest
easily the first time that's happened in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think highest is Louisiana Marshall right now at 5.5 or something.
That's good for the sport and good for us fans as we get to take all those conference championship games in this weekend. Let's lead it off with a little something different. JP mentioned the portal. A lot of things going on the move, whether it be players, whether it be coaches. Let's start with the coaches. Let's start on the good side. Before we get into the fired coaches, let's talk on the good side. Casey Keeler, the head coach from Sam Houston State, takes the new job at Temple. He headed the move from Sam Houston to the FBS. The Bearcats are having a great season. Now he's at Temple. What do you think about this hire? Just short. I mean, it's good for Temple, in my opinion. I mean, they're in a competitive G5 conference, in my opinion, and it struggled over time, looking to respark that Matt Rule era level Temple. What do you think, Jake, on this hire? Good move or kind of a crazy move with how much success he had at Sam Houston?
I think it's a huge move for Temple. If you are a Temple fan, how many Temple fans there are out there?
Me, current college football 25 dynasty.
Yes. Like, this is a program that just had a letter put out 2-3 weeks ago that the AD was like, or maybe it was the president, it doesn't matter, who's contemplating, like, do we want to keep the football program going forward? Like, what's kind of at stake for us? And now they go and pick up a seasoned veteran who really, I think just the surprising part for Casey Keeler is just like his time at Sam Houston for how long he's been there. You'd think, I don't know. I don't consider this a jump up.
Maybe.
But like, I don't, your resources aren't any much better than maybe you think the Philadelphia market. There's something there that you can recruit off of compared to Sam Houston. I don't know, but just interesting, I guess. But at the same time, there's just been a lot of different coaching moves, not only this year, but last year, where you're like, really? That's kind of interesting, but it's just kind of college football in 2024, I guess.
What do you think, JP?
I think whoever gets hired at Temple at any point in time, right, has to win. Like Jake's saying, the Philly Metro, you have to win the Pennsylvania area at your level. Completely understanding that kids higher end 3-star, 4-star, 5-stars aren't going to end up at Temple, but you need to win those recruiting battles for those kids that, you know, are within your walk. And then you got to win the portal, especially when you're at Temple, where program doesn't have the same history. They don't have the same lifeblood and fan base and things like that. It's just, I think it's a good hire to go get a program builder and a guy who I believe at Delaware prior to his time at Sam Houston, an FCS national title, Sam Houston, the jump up and the obvious success this year for them. Get a program builder, get a guy people want to be around. That's just one more thing you don't have to worry about, right? Is like if the coach is iffy and, you know, if you're keeping kids on that roster and year in and year out, you're continually to build with guys you want to be around. That's this. It's the way you build those programs at this point in time, right? Even if you get a kid up to snuff the first 2 years, he might get poached, but it's a good hire because you went culture, right? You didn't go offensive guru, you didn't go defensive guru, you went culture, and I think we saw that with the initial hit with the hire for Texas State and GJ Kinney. I think we saw that initial hit at UCF's hire. I think there's a lot of them, right? And Casey is not the young guy like GJ Kinney and other stuff, but he's a program builder and a guy people want to be around. And I think that's the right move to go there.
All right, we'll see where Temple ends up. Go ahead, Jake. Where was he at beforehand?
Well, no, I was going to say, and I thought their D coordinator took another job too, but I cannot remember for the life of me where he went as well. So I don't know. Interesting. After 2 years of making that jump for Sam Houston, they have a really impressive season at 9-3, and now it's like, now where do we go from here? Who do we hire? So,
and the defensive coordinator might be as big as a move as the head coach. I mean, that was one of the top defenses in college football.
Here you go, Parks. Yep, this is you. Their D coordinator is the new D coordinator at North Texas. So,
what a blessing!
AAC.
What a step up. I mean, you're not asking much. You're asking for Iowa results on the offensive side of the ball there at North Texas. That's all you need, just a little step up. So that's a good hire for North Texas. The Mean Green should be better on defense next year, but we'll see how it works out at Temple with Casey Keeler. Now let's go into the fired head coaches. This one's obviously not as fun to cover, but Mack Brown goes down at North Carolina, Neil Brown over at West Virginia, Gus Malzahn at UCF, who had some weird rumors today with their coaching search, and then, of course, Ryan Walters at Purdue. Those are the notable coach firings. Obviously, we had a few beforehand, Charlotte, so on and so forth, but these are the notable ones from this week. What do we think? Any moves that stands out? Obviously, Mack Brown didn't go out the way he probably should have with the career he had, but they had to make the move.
Yeah, 100% they had to make the move. You're hanging on too long, right? That rope's getting thin. It's getting worn out. Like, you kind of have to move away from position where it could only get worse. Like, you've seen programs do this a lot. Bill Snyder, Kansas State, the end of Hayden Fry's era at Iowa. Obviously, that was a longer time ago. But other schools have ran into this issue. You need to get ahead of it. You need to understand that even if he gets back on the right track, it's not going to be up to the snuff probably where the president or the AD and that fan base wants to be. Malzahn won. This is a second, bigger coaching move from a smaller Power 4 school to being a coordinator at one of the biggest. That's fine by me. I didn't think that's where Florida State would go with that, just with the scheme he runs and what he does specifically. Holgorsen won a year. Bought him a year, I guess. He bought himself a year. So, like, what are we going to say there? Or not Holgorsen. Sorry.
Let's say who? Holgorsen.
Neil Brown.
Don't bring my guy into it. Don't bring my boy Gina into it.
Well, like, Neil Brown bought himself a year, and then again, like, if he has a bounce back year, what is a bounce back year to West Virginia? Are they going to accept 7 next year or 8? I'm not sure if they were prepared to do so. Parks, you did touch on weird rumors. Outlandish.
They're not
outlandish. Real. No, that's my point. Is like, he's not trying to get a raise from USC. What has he done this year that would earn him a raise, or the last 2 years that have earned him a raise, So it's like, UCF can make a splash hire. I think that's an attractive job. North Carolina, obviously. West Virginia feels like one. You have to get a guy that wants to be there, a culture builder, a guy who really understands that fan base and who they want to be. North Carolina, I think, can go get somebody. UCF, I think, will go and try and, make an actual splash hire. Will they land it? I don't know. I'm sure things will come out in time, but I expect more to come open here. But a new trend of kind of ADs also coming out and saying, hey, he's staying. Billy Napier, right? Sam Pittman. Other guys throughout the country, like, no, he's staying, actually. Like, we want him to be the coach.
Well, I mean, today is what? National Signing Day.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense of why they're getting out on top of it early.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys had to go through the list, obviously there's names that had been out there for the last couple of years that have kind of fizzled out. And I'm going to lead off with Matt Campbell because his name was so hot for a while and it cooled off. But I think people have either gotten the vibe that he doesn't want most of these jobs or he doesn't want to move at all. Jeff Traylor at UTSA was a hot name for a long time. That doesn't really feel like one that's on the market as much. GJ Kinney, after I feel like a disappointing year for Texas State with where they are, he's not as hot of a name. Golish as well. It feels like we're still trying to figure out what coaches are next in line. A lot of these spots, obviously Summerall feels like a big one. I'm kind of trying to think of the names and I'm just not sure where I would pull from at this exact moment.
Yeah, I don't see a huge pool as well. Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think all of these, it took, maybe not West Virginia. I thought you could have held Neal a little longer, but it felt like the rest of these schools, Purdue, North Carolina, they had to make this move. I know they're kind of trying to avoid the buyout with the revenue share thing coming up and all this kind of stuff. But some of these schools, like Max, just he done his time. Malzahn, just with the shit show that it was this year. Obviously, Ryan Walters just getting dismantled.
Yikes.
It just, these had to be made. So I think we're kind of set on as far as the coaching landscape goes, at least for the rest of the offseason, it feels like to me, as far as firings go. But I think these 4 or 5 Power 4 schools they just had to make these moves.
Yeah, they absolutely did. But I want to bring back up the whole situation that we addressed in the first place with UCF and Gus Malzahn. Jake, you mentioned a rumor that you said was not true. Which one were you referring to?
I was referring to the Lincoln Riley one. That's what I was thinking. Is it the one we're talking about?
That was one part of it, but I saw a lot of Scott Frost back to UCF out there today.
I did see that one.
In that spot.
That would be quite the move. I mean, I don't think it would be a dumb move by any means. I mean, you've seen it work once, but they're obviously in a new league. It's a new world, and he didn't have the best or most recent experience, to my guess, I think. But that could be an interesting spot. Maybe Scott Frost is a name that will be floating around out there if he wants to get back into coaching. He still have my money in his pocket, so maybe he's ready to get back into it. But we'll see there. Any other coaching news that you guys want to relate? Obviously, Nebraska, I have a few. Tony White heads to Florida State. A couple defensive coordinator moves. Terrence Knighton will head to Florida State with Tony White, Nebraska's D-line coach, and then they hire Kentucky's wide receiver coach.
I was going to say, are we excited about Kentucky's wide receiver coach?
I am. It was a Holgorsen bring in. It was his most trusted guy. The guy he's most excited about was previously on the 30 under 30 list for coordinators and coaches. So I like the young hire. He's going to obviously help in recruiting guys that we lost, like Evan Cooper early in the season. It will be big in replacing kind of that spot for Nebraska in the recruiting realm. And Nebraska had a good recruiting day too. So hopefully we can pick up a couple of portal additions. And I'm glad I got to mention that. But let's move into the portal. Let's talk about the transfer portal. It's open. There's people moving. There's bowl games coming. But we got to mention the few big names that came off. Let's start with
by the way.
Well,
it's open Monday.
I had to clarify for us.
Take anybody, you can jump into it. Sorry. Kentucky wide receiver Dane King, Oklahoma quarterback Jackson Arnold, Iowa quarterback Cade McNamara, Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman, Fresno State quarterback Mikey Keene, ULM running back Ahmad Hardy. And if you don't think that's a big name, look him up because he'll make an impact.
I was talking about McNamara.
Okay, fair enough.
Welcome to Ball
State,
State, brother.
He was Petrus was a big pickup for Utah State and the small success they had.
Yeah,
so
McNamara don't have that arm. Ball State's gonna love him.
You think Ball State quarterback Cade McNamara?
He does. He sings Ball State to me. He does.
I like that you led with some quarterbacks there because the quarterback names, Jake's not impressed with it to this point. I don't think you should be.
No.
But Micah Hudson, like if we're going to play
Yeah.
receiver feels like
Casey
it's going to be a
Concepcion.
hot commodity in the portal this year. As it has been in recent years, we always see big names flying into the portal and they are immediate impact guys. I've tweeted this out a couple of times. I hope Iowa is linked to every single one of these quarterbacks that come out just because it means nothing, but just to like get the fan base like thinking that like they need to donate to like get these guys in. Like Wegman has already been linked to, Miller Moss we've been linked to. It's like the only thing that link these people together is somebody reached out to them one time, right? And they're all, you know who they all also have on their list? Louisville.
Yeah.
Is Miller
Big
Moss not
school.
scream Louisville quarterback?
Yeah, I would say so.
One
He-
that sticks out that could make an impact. Mikey Keene is a
Yeah,
good
Mikey
quarterback
Keene,
name.
Yep.
That's a huge
Yep.
He
quarterback.
just
name
dealt
when it
with a
comes to
weird
throwing.
situation at Fresno State this year, right? Like that wasn't, a normal situation and they didn't have the year they wanted to have, but that's a guy who I feel like an impact guy. Like he's not going to change everything you do offensively, but he's going to sure it up pretty quick in my opinion.
100%. Good experience, can use his legs, really consistent thrower, one of the all-time leading passers at Fresno State, who's a historically really good G5 school. So impressive name there. What do you think about Ahmad Hardy? You think that's going to be a power 4 guy on the lower tier, like a Vanderbilt land, or do you think he'll stay within that kind of Purdue, Illinois range?
I think it completely depends on how many guys want to go get a running back out of the portal.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know
how confident you are in the young guys on campus, right? I feel like it's harder to go get a running back and plug and play him in some spots. Like Judkins worked out, but you had Travion with him, right? I don't know. That's one of those things, I guess, that
Damian
it just
Martinez
completely
worked
depends.
out,
Yeah.
but they went all in on transfers.
Yep. Edwards at Kansas State worked out well. Colorado had good success this year at the running back position. And was it Holden? Not Holden.
Yeah.
It is
LeJontay
Holden.
Wester?
No,
Is that where
the running back position.
Oh,
They brought in a
Dallin
kid.
Holden? Yeah, from
Holden.
Ohio State or whatever.
Ooh,
It's a good comment in here. A little shout out to Jake for creation of the hype
Appreciate
video
that,
for
Colin.
Iowa. I mean,
Yep.
Iowa State being involved in the hype video, it's a little swayed. It's a little skewed.
Mhm.
You get to include.
I thought
the
I
good
threw more
video.
Arizona
They got
State
good clips though.
high clips in there
He
compared
did.
to Iowa State.
I
but-
believe he's referring to a tight end that Kansas State got.
Yeah,
an
the
in-state
late
kid.
I
He's
think
a
it's something Luke
massive
Larkin kid.
individual. Yeah, he's a big kid. Great get for them. Fits the scheme. I think he was down to like a lot of the Midwestern schools where he was thinking he was going to be. So good for Kansas State.
Don't forget about 5-star transfer. He may not have been a 5-star player, but a 5-star transfer, Adrian Martinez. He's a 5-star human being. So that's
Yeah.
a big get for K-State then. That might have been their first ever 5-star.
Possible.
But yeah, their National Signing Day was super interesting today. You saw a lot of flips. Is it hard to get excited for National Signing Day for you guys because of you never know what's going to happen? I mean, it's still cool to see where some guys end up, but with the late flips, the transfer portal, you got to think like how many of these guys are we really going to see make an impact here in 1 or 2
Mhm.
years?
Bigger schools, I would say
Say-
yes. Jake,
Yeah.
as developmental schools, do you feel a little more
Yeah.
confident that most of them stay?
And most of them stay. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's hard to follow recruiting with Iowa State, which I do, and like who they pick up and everything. I like a lot of the offensive linemen they got. They flipped a dude from Stanford yesterday, I saw. But it's more just like trust in what Matt Campbell does. Like he even said it in his press conference yesterday. He's like, we don't go after 4 or 5 stars normally. We go after our 3 stars. That's where we make our bread and butter. Like we recruit kids with good backgrounds, like good high schools and like what they do and all that stuff. And then you just trust them to probably get into a spot. Honestly, I've seen more higher recruits at Iowa State that come to my mind that end up like not panning out as much. Like there was a receiver a couple of years ago, Joe Skates, that came to my mind. He was like top 5 Iowa State recruit ever. He ended up at Memphis. So I don't get overly excited. I will say I haven't been as excited in a while with the Mansky kid, especially him being in state. It's really cool. I think I'm excited about what he could do after Rocco leaves, which leaves the question up to a couple of in-state kids who are still on the roster right now.
Yeah, JJ Cole won't be there.
Yeah.
He might not, but Alex Mansky is an absolute huge pickup. That was a big Nebraska target. Incredible film. If you haven't gotten to watch, you're a Cyclone fan in here, check out Alex Mansky's high school film. He throws like it's like 80% of his throws are touchdown passes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. So he's a huge pickup for the Clones. But all right, outside of that, let's go into the games for this weekend. Obviously, the transfer portal's big news. Let's talk real football. But before we do that, we have to briefly mention our great partners over at No Rivals. Shop norivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on any of your premium collegiate headwear, like this beautiful piece I have on of the SMU Vintage Collection, or the Stillwater piece JP's flashing you of the Hometown Collection. So check those out today. Use that code PTFS at checkout for free shipping. We'll cover it for you. Great gifts for the holiday season as well. So shout out No Rivals. Shop norivals.com today. With that, let's talk playoffs. I forgot to mention it. It was on our schedule for tonight's show. So let's briefly mention our playoff picture that we made up, graphically put out there. We got some slack back on having Arizona State and Iowa State in there. How does it make you feel, Jake?
Did we? I gotta go back and look at this. Did we get comments from people about
Somebody just thought we were insane for having both of them in there. And I commented back at him and I said they're a Big 12 hater and pointed at them and nothing came of that. But it's just Big
Here's
12
the
hate.
deal. We're one Jeff Sims game away from an 11-1 Arizona State team who I think would have a good enough resume to be in the playoff, win or lose this weekend. To Iowa State's fault or credit, I think you're a Texas Tech one defensive stop in the Texas Tech game away from also having an at-large spot, win or lose this weekend if you're 11-1 sitting there. So I like that we reward these teams who are still 10-2, and there's not many 10-2 teams left in college football, and we don't care about brand or whatever. So we may never get heard, but we will voice our opinion. And we're going
to be clear, like our playoff outlook is based on our rankings. That's a ranking we put together each week. We average out where everybody is, put them in order. Iowa State just happened to be at 12, right?
You know what?
We're not saying they're both getting in. We're telling you this is where our rankings would have everybody at this moment.
I appreciate how much we punished Ohio State because I don't think they deserved. I don't think they got punished as much as they deserved. I mean, forget they were 21 favorites at home this weekend. 21. Notre Dame was a 28-point favorite against Northern Illinois. Completely understand two different programs, two different play styles with athletes, whatever. But they were. I mean, what do we remember? Like, didn't they throw Notre Dame back in the AP poll back to like 20? Or 18 or whatever. They just threw them back there. Obviously, sample size much earlier in the season. Where that was 2 games in. This is 12. I don't know. Still a little frustrating that Ohio State didn't get is punished for it. It's just an unexplainable performance.
I'm wondering, that situation's so interesting to me because let's say Ohio State somehow, some way doesn't get a bid in because they missed a Big Ten title game, which we'll cover tonight. But does Ryan Day get fired? Let's say they don't get the bid. Do they pull the trigger then? Or do they let him coach the New Year's Six Bowl or whatever, just outside of it?
If they don't get into the playoff, they might axe him immediately.
If they wouldn't have gotten into the playoff. And this whole thing, they're like, oh, we don't care if we win the national championship anymore. We don't care.
Spoiled fan base.
Shut the hell up. God, it's such a joke. Like, what? I don't know. It's embarrassing.
If I was in that position, and Iowa was 10-2 with a loss to Iowa State on the schedule, and we went into the playoff and won a national title, you're going to give it to me to the end of time, right? You're just going to be like, well, we got you that year. I'll be like, that's so fine. I want you to know that. I mean, I'm not happy about it, but like, look at my hand. There's a ring on it. You see this? Like people are going to look in history books and I'd be like, that team lost to Iowa State. Nope. They're going to be like, look at this ring on this finger, right? This is immortality.
And it feels like we're going to lead into years like that coming with how college football has been week to week and a majority of conferences really competitive across the board. We're going to run into more 2 or 3 lost national champions than we were in the past. We're not going to get those 14 or 15-0 teams as consistently as we saw. So we'll have to see how it goes going forward. But that's a college football playoff discussion. Let's go into the games now. We're already almost a half hour in, and we got to cover all Power 4 games and then check out our live preview of the G5 game of the week, which we're not going to reveal yet. That will be live on YouTube right after the episode. So check that out tonight later on. All right, with that, let's go into the Big 12 National Championship, the Big 12 Conference Championship. Feels like it for Jake. Iowa State, Arizona State. This one's in Jerry's world. Should be a fun one. Let's go to Jake to break this one down first, as the Sun Devils are 2-point favorites over the Cyclones.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on it too much. I mean, I have a 58-minute live video out there if you guys really want to hear my opinion. My 2 cents, and then I want to hear the outsider's perspective. I think the Jordan Tyson injury is a massive deal for Arizona State. I really do. They do not have a second option at receiver right now that has even half the amount of catches as Tyson does. He was on fire the way he was playing the last few weeks, just 150 plus yards, multiple touchdowns. He was unguardable. And now really interested to see what Cam Skattebo can do. And can he get to 175 yards? Because that's kind of what it feels like, what will be needed from him on Saturday. But I think the one thing Iowa State fans are underestimating is Sam Levitt's ability to use his legs and to extend plays. I don't think we're ready for that. And you may be without your best receiver in Tyson, but if you can't get the quarterback down and he's out there extending plays, it's hard to cover anybody out there for that long a time. So that is my concern. I do see a possibility where he's elite extending plays, but we'll have to wait and see. I do think the Tyson injury is massive, though.
I think this game's so fun on paper. If you look at both defenses, they're both giving up around 21 points a game this season. I think across the board, both these teams are really similar when it comes to statistical matchups. But what sticks out to me is one, Arizona State's really bad in the kicking game. If you don't think field goals are going to be a part of this Big 12 title, I think you're sadly mistaken. They're only making 50% of their kicks. So in situations like against a Matt Campbell defense in a big game, those situations are going to arise where you're going to have to take three a few times throughout the game. I do think there's going to be points put up in this game, but obviously Iowa State has the upper hand there. They've got a couple of young, big legs that can give them the upper hand in that matchup. I think Iowa State, something people don't know about them other than Jake, or if you're a fan of them, they don't get penalized a lot, man. They're one of the least penalized teams in the country, and it benefits them wholeheartedly. Go back to the old saying, if you don't shoot yourself in the foot, you're probably going to walk and live longer. Iowa State has walked this season further than anybody thought because they don't take dumb penalties. They don't get knocked back on offensive drives when it comes down to the end of the game and they need to put a drive together. They've been able to do so by not getting a sack or a holding call, things like that. So Iowa State survived because they've been so competent on the offense and penalty side of things that I really like them in this spot. I think you have to limit the run game, obviously. I'm glad you mentioned Sam Levitt's legs. He can run, man. He's an elusive quarterback. It's two young quarterbacks that have multiple assets of the game working for them. Both sophomores, a little bit more experience under Beck's belt, but Sam Levitt's shown everything you want him to this year, and he's got one of the best backs, if not the best back in the Big 12 this year in Skattebo. So we'll see how this offense progresses against the Matt Campbell defense. But if the Matt Campbell defense can get a few third down stops and force them into those field goal situations, I like Iowa State close in this one, just on paper, but it's so close. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm mad this isn't a night game because it might be one of the better ones of the day. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I think when you look at both these teams kind of combined, Iowa State's kind of, it feels like continue to sputter a little bit offensively at times. If it's not Knoll or Higgins, they haven't been able to find something that's really worked. The run game kind of came to life in that Kansas State game with Sama finding his legs and making plays that, aren't normal plays for a back to make. Those are plus plays in a lot of spots. Rocco needs to just stay within himself, which he's done well, but I do feel like he's thrown a couple that just don't make any sense and really could have hurt their chances last Saturday. Arizona State is a lot better defensively than they get credit for. They're really good against the run. My worry is that if Higgins starts, to do his thing and just work the routes, it's going to be tough to cover him, right? And if he's open, he's open. Rocco doesn't miss a ton of wide open guys. And honestly, if Kansas State can just suffocate the run game and make Rocco continue to beat them nonstop, I think it gets a little tougher on him. And you could say the same for Arizona State, right? Like Jake just covered this. They're missing their best weapon on the outside. And if Iowa State can, enhance their run defense, it's going to be tough for Skattebo and company to really get comfortable anywhere. It's a simple game in the Big 12. It doesn't feel like these two teams do anything too crazy or too special. Like a lot of the Big 12 teams try to just live and die by the big play, and they live and die at, kind of defense as well. These are two teams that don't do that. And so we're getting a more traditional football game and what they want to do and how they handle things. So kicking, turnovers, run game. I mean, three boring topics, but three things that I promise you will come into more. Something's going to come to light and somebody's going to make a mistake or somebody's going to make a play that you weren't expecting. So Arizona State, I think, is favored based on the recent success and like the no struggles against the teams they've run into. I think Iowa State's in this spot simply due to a couple sputters they've had down, later in the year, and then just the question mark against a run offense like this one.
Going back to what you talked about in your full live preview, Jake, of this game with JT, check that out under our lives tab, by the way. You mentioned that you think Arizona State has a chance to get out early in this game, a 10-0, 14-0 lead, and Iowa State will battle back. Why do you think that is, and why do you think Iowa State is so? I mean, it's proven that they're battle tested and can do that this season, but why do you think that's kind of the case that you see it going in this game?
Well, more often than not this year, I'd love to go back and check, but Iowa State has given up a touchdown on the first possession, and I believe at least 6 games this year.
Every time I've watched them.
Yeah, there was a streak. There was like 4 or 5 in a row, and that was kind of in the midst of their losing streak too. So that's reason number one. I don't know. I think that this is just going to be a young, fired up Arizona State team that's just going to be ready to go right off the rip. I think Iowa State is kind of a veteran team to a sense, and they have been able to maintain their composure pretty good this season. You look at the Baylor game, they were down early in that one. The Iowa game, they buried themselves, was able to battle back after that. So you've seen it time and time again this year where they kind of just let the game play out. As a fan, you'd love for them to start the game like they did against K-State with a fumble right off the bat. But like we always say, this team, we're 12 games in now. This team is what it is. So it would not surprise me if Arizona State's able to get up, a score or two early.
All right. With that, let's go into our score predictions for this matchup. Who is going to win the Big 12 title? Jake, I'll let you go first. Maybe you can. I know you had some change of heart throughout your show the other night, but what do you think right now? For this one counts.
You can't go against him here.
No, JP, you mentioned it. What does this come down to? Turnovers, penalties, kicking. Iowa State top 15 in turnovers. We have the kicking edge. They were doing kicking tryouts halfway through the year. And then penalties, we're top 5 in penalties. So I think Iowa State gets it done. I said 24-20 on the show. And I do think this one's going to hit the over of 51, but that's what I said. I'm going to stick to it. Not going to change it. 24-20.
All right. Let me jump on the back with you. I think Iowa State gets it done here. I think the spread's in a good spot and an understandable spot for the way Arizona State's played a tougher non-con schedule and been battle tested a little bit. But this Iowa State team has just gotten it done because of the 3 factors that you guys listed off. And in this situation, I think they've had the recent experience in 2020 when they were in this game, ended up losing, but battled their way back in that one too. I think this is the year Matt Campbell can get it done, get this team to 11 wins for the first time in school history, because they already made history this year and got to 10. So I think they can get it to 11 and sneak their way into that automatic college football playoff bid. I assume JP is going the other way rivalry-wise, but what do you think?
I'm going 28-24 Arizona State. I just think
no unanimous picks around here.
No, and I honestly just feel like, the fatigue of being in these kind of game all year also matters. Like, it is one thing to like be seasoned in it and understand it and not be scared by it, but it's another thing to consistently have to do it nonstop and just the emotional, tear that happens. I'll go 28-24 Arizona State based on the run game. I think Sam Leavitt kind of coming to light party in the national scale, and I think Rocco will be good, and the receiving game will be good. I'm just really worried about Iowa State becoming too one-dimensional. And I could say the same for Arizona State, but I'm going to take Arizona State.
All right, there it is. Let's go a fun style way to wrap these conference titles up. Just a new piece. Jake, we have Iowa State winning, so I'll let you go first. But who do you think the player of the game, if the result you picked, will be? Who's the difference maker?
24. I said it on the show, 24-20, and I think Iowa State needs a last minute drive to put together for a go-ahead score. And who's done it time and time again this year? Number 3, Rocco Becht. I think the cover 3 said it on their big game breakdown. Is this Rocco Becht's coming out party? Potentially, could be. I hope so. He needs the spotlight he deserves.
Rocco's made a few mistakes this year that's going to make me not pick him in this spot, but I do think 2 touchdown performing Abu Sama will take the MVP home in this game.
We get
that's
2
my
rushing
bold
touchdowns.
prediction.
We get 2 rushing touchdowns, I'll be jumping for joy.
Abu Sama, that's my bold pick. JP, who do you think on the other side of things? Who will the player of the game difference maker be for Arizona State?
It's going to have to be Sam Levitt because he's going to have to
Yep.
find new weapons. He's going to have to be able to get out of the pocket and make things happen outside of between the tackle run game with Scadaboo. So I go Sam Levitt.
All right, there it is. There's Iowa State, Arizona State, the Big 12 title game. Check that one out live, 11 a.m. on ABC. ABC has majority of these title games, by the way, besides the Big 10. So let's go into the Big 10. This one's in Indianapolis. Penn State sneaks their way in with the Ohio State loss to Michigan to face the number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks in Lucas Oil Stadium. 7 o'clock on CBS Saturday night. The Ducks are a 3.5-point favorite. Drew Aller and company looking to sneak in that Big 10 title under James Franklin after they didn't have to beat Ohio State or Michigan to get in. Here they are. Can they do it? Let's break this one down. Yeah, let's break this one down from the top. JP, who do you think wins and why? And break down the game for us.
Absolutely. Oregon consistently has been the most well-rounded team, offensive, defensively, special teams throughout the entire season. I think we've all kind of gotten to the point, especially when we're looking at the playoff picture, everybody's got to slip up somewhere. Someone's got a blemish. Some are a little bigger cuts than others. Oregon took their swings in an Idaho game. They took their swings in a Boise State game. They took it against Ohio State. They then took it in Madison against Wisconsin. I think this team is better. I think Gabriel is kind of playing his best ball of his career at this moment in time. I think the receivers on this team are underrated. For some reason, I feel like those 3 haven't gotten the same love that other ones have throughout the country this year. When we look at like a trio of receiving core, like Ohio State the last couple of years has gotten their love with their 3, Washington a season ago, Texas even a season ago. I think the same needs to start happening for this Oregon team. This is going to come down to 2 teams who really thrive themselves being great defensively. And I truly think Gabriel and everything that Oregon does is more well-equipped to handle that kind of thing. They saw a really good one in Ohio State. Penn State did as well. Here's the difference is that Penn State is still working through things with Aller. He's been good. He hasn't turned it over this year near as much. They have a weapon, but your weapon is Tyler Warren at the tight end position that you slot out or put out wide or put in the backfield even. I think Oregon has the matchups defensively in the linebacking core and their guys I'll bring in at the slot corner spot to cover that kind of thing. He'll get his in some way. They just happen to. Kotelnicki's that good. He's going to get Tyler Warren the football. He's going to try to put his team in a spot to succeed. I think the offensive line for Oregon and how they handle Penn State's front will tell a lot in the run game. But the extension of the run game is Oregon's short passing game and Gabriel between 0 and 9 yards. His ability to hit high completion throws and let guys who make explosive plays continue to do that kind of thing. I really like Oregon in this spot. 3.5, I would take it up to 7. I really like Oregon in this spot because I've seen this team do it against elite defenses. I've seen them do it against elite offenses. I've seen them consistently be good throughout the entire year. I've seen Penn State look good offensively. Most of those spots were against not great defenses after looking back at the West Virginia game. I've seen them struggle against a really good Ohio State defense. I saw them struggle with it, Illinois and some other schools this year. I really just think that when you're this well-rounded, I'm going to take the better team offensively against the defense because I feel like Oregon matches so well against Penn State's offense. So I'm going to take Oregon here. I would lay up to a touchdown. I'm not saying Penn State's not good and doesn't deserve a playoff spot, but I don't think this is the matchup that suits them well. I think there is just too much speed, too much that you're asking of Aller to make plays with guys on the outside that aren't going to be able to do that kind of thing. So I like Oregon in this spot. And my breakdown is just, I think there's just better athletes with Oregon, and what Penn State has to do to keep up with that is just too much.
I think it's a fair place to put the game. I mean, you heard me talk about earlier in the show how we're not going to have these undefeated national champions that make a run. All of a sudden, here on the other side sits this Oregon team who's played really good opponents throughout the season. They had an easier back half of their schedule, sure, but they've made it through some games that have shocked some people. I mean, the Idaho game and the Boise State game early in the season, a lot of people had a different opinion of this Oregon team than they did before the season started. Here we are talking about them in the Big Ten title as an almost touchdown favorite, and people thinking them as a touchdown favorite. It's just an impressive group that's got the job done throughout the entire season. Sure. Evan Stewart's been incredible in the back half, especially against good teams. They've recruited well. Everything's looking up and up in this program. And then on the other side, we're talking about a program that had all the confidence in the world going into the 12-team playoff. They found themselves in exactly the spot that they thought they would be. Maybe not in the Big Ten title, but at least competing for that later playoff spot. Here they have an opportunity to really lock it up just by keeping this game competitive, and I think they can do so. I think when you look at this Oregon team, you got to look at when they struggle throughout the season. And it's when they really can't get it going on offense or finish drives. Look at against, people like Idaho, where they have the ball inside the red zone over 8 times and they only score 2 or 3 times every trip down there. Against Wisconsin, same story. They only put up 16 points, but their defense picks their offense up when they're having slow days. That's why they've been so successful throughout the season. And it's really hard to tell you that Drew Aller and a Penn State offense who's struggled against Michigan and Ohio State so many times is going to be answered by this Oregon defense who's equally as good, if not better, than those groups have been in years past. So everything screams Oregon on paper throughout the entire season. It looks like they're battle tested. Lanning and the style of coach he is going to have these guys amped up, ready to play like they're not getting into the playoff if they don't win this game. And they're just looking to make a run all the way throughout the title of the college football playoff. So I feel the same way, JP. I like the Ducks in this spot. I think they can do enough offensively. And I think the story of the game here is going to be the Oregon defense. I think they're going to stagger the Penn State offense, limit the run better than teams have throughout the season against the Nittany Lions, and take advantage there. What do you think, Jake?
Hand in hand with you guys. Laid this on Sunday. I'm with you, JP. I honestly wish I would have taken an alternate line at this point because I do have that much.
It's crazy.
That is true.
Stagger it all the way up to 7.
James Franklin is 3-17 versus top 10 teams. And the one thing that we were concerned about with Penn State is just their ability to move the ball on offense against Ohio State. And they can't get it done versus Ohio State. JP, you kind of said it. Like, I don't think Oregon's much different athlete-wise on the defensive line than Ohio State is. Jordan Birch, Derek Harmon, I think they're both going to be able to give Penn State problems. This whole thing, we've been talking about how, Kovalnicki's been really good. I mean, yeah, he's been really efficient with Aller, but it's not like this team's putting up points like they were like he was at Kansas. I get it. 2 different styles of play, 2 different conferences, whatever. But the Andy Kovalnicki offense that comes to my mind is on the 5-yard line when you didn't give it to your best player on the last possession of the game that lost you the football game. I still think Penn State still has its issues offensively to overcome this. And in a climate controlled environment like Lucas Oil Stadium will be, Oregon speed is just going to show. It's going to be apparent. But I am interested to see, Abdul Carter and that defensive line, how they get after Oregon. We'll see if they do rattle them. We'll see. But I'm with you both. I heavily lean Oregon.
Okay. I think we're all in a very similar spot here, possibly a unanimous pick coming. But with that, let's go roundtable style score predictions. Who wins? Who's your player of the game? Who's the difference maker in this matchup, the Big Ten title game? JP, sorry.
Yeah, I'll go 31-17.
You gotta go first.
Ducks. 31-17 Ducks. And I'm going to take Uyunglele on the defensive line. How about a couple just crazy strip sacks and some plays, right?
Yeah.
Let's wreak some havoc. And if Aller gets under pressure, he's got to do that kind of thing too. I think that's where Oregon shines, is maybe not where they expect him to be as elite in this one. Like, you're going to be looking at the receivers. You're going to be looking at Gabriel. I don't think you're looking at this defensive line really showing out because there are plenty of pieces over there.
I think we talked about Oregon a lot here, but on the Penn State defensive side of things, yes, they have star players, standout guys like Abdul Carter, so on and so forth. But I think the difference maker in this game for Oregon, I think they're going to win the football game. I think they're going to put up 38 points, probably like a 38-28, and that's on a high end for Penn State in my mind. Realistically, I'm seeing it more like a 38-17 Oregon rolls in, just because that's how much talent they have. But this is a step back Penn State defense, in my opinion, across the board. I mean, you give up 30 to USC. You struggled with Woody Marks. Who's to say Jordan James can't go in there, be the physical speed back he's been for Oregon this year? I think he's going to be the difference maker. Oregon's going to win the game, roll in the game, and win the Big Ten title their first year in. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, like Danny Sutton's another good piece on that Penn State defense. I still like this defense, but the back end is probably the worst link of its defense if I had to guess. And I think Tez Johnson's going to be my player of the game. I think he's just finally coming back, getting into his own. Dylan Gabriel, there's nobody in college football more accurate when he gets time. And Tez Johnson is going to be elite again, like he was versus Ohio State.
All right. I think that's a good place to put this one. Oregon, the across the board pick for Play the Fight song in the Big Ten title. We will see where JT and maybe Reese go on the ATS board to round things out in the regular season, plus the conference titles on the ATS board. So
Good
that
win,
is the
Penn
Big Ten
State.
title game. Yeah, that is
Good win,
tough.
Penn
That's
State.
a tough scene if you're an Oregon fan. But on paper, I don't know many people outside of Penn State fans that would agree. I haven't seen a lot of national media nor Twitter famous people picking the Nittany Lions to take down the Ducks in this spot. I just think Dan Lanning's crew is too stacked, and they had another stacked day with Phil Knight's money today. So watch out for the Ducks in the future as well. All right, let's go on to the ACC. This one's going to be a little bit more interesting, kind of written off by a bunch of folks, but SMU is here, people. Their first year in the ACC, and they are matching up with Clemson, who backed their way into the ACC title last week with Miami's loss to Syracuse. Shout out Syracuse. Shout out Reese. Clemson's in the ACC title. Let's break this one down from the top. Jake, do it for us.
Yeah, it's just so funny, like how Clemson and Penn State both got in. It's like the kid that's napping in school, and they're like, "Jimmy, you're up." Okay. Presenting. Okay.
The Fran Brown shout out from Syracuse was absolutely all time.
Goal.
Dabo, I got you, baby. Got you in.
Dabo should send him like to the nicest steakhouse in Syracuse. One of these.
If
days.
they win, they should share half the revenue in the college bowl playoff or something. I'll try to keep this one a little shorter. I think the power ratings like heavily favor SMU. So like, is this just a 2.5 point spread because of the brand in Clemson? Now I know when you're making lines, like nobody just does it based off a logo. I get that, but it just feels like if you put a Louisville sticker in front of Clemson, same teams match up, same roster, like I feel SMU should be like a 4-point favorite or something. But SMU does have the 75th ranked strength of schedule. So the narrative about they haven't played anybody, I guess this is why we just play the football games. For me, it's like the Clemson defense versus Kevin Jennings. It's going to be really intriguing. This SMU offense is not super high flying, like scoring a ton of points, but it's going to have to be efficient. And it has been the last few weeks. They've been covering with ease in their last couple of games. The offense has been really clean since that 5 turnover game against Duke. But this is going to be a different beast, I think, in Clemson. That defense is still legit. You go back and watch the game last week. I picture Kevin Jennings in the place of Lenoris Sellers. I don't think Kevin Jennings gets out of some of those situations that Lenoris was able to make last week. Like there was literally 4 dudes just hovering over Sellers, and he was able to make it a miraculous play. I don't know. I'm a little nervous if they get that kind of pressure on Jennings if I'm SMU.
That's a fair place to put this game. I think I'm going to take it from a different point of view and look at SMU's defense. SMU's defense has been one of the more impressive groups in college football. I mean, yes, the 75th ranked strength of schedule, Jake, you already mentioned it. It 100% includes these games and tells you why the statistics are kind of where they're at. But on offense, you put up 40 points a game. You have the 7th ranked scoring offense in the country. But on the defense side of the ball, how impressive has that defensive line unit been when it comes to the rush game? They're only allowing 2.9 yards per play, yards per rush as a defense. It's just been incredible up front, and it's going to be a tough week for them to do that level against a Phil Mafah team. But Clemson's play calling throughout the season has been pass heavy. I mean, Klubnik's throwing the ball 38 to 40 times a game more consistently than not. So what kind of Clemson are we going to get? Are we going to get the Phil Mafah show where they're going to try and establish the run early against a defense who hasn't given it up all season? Or are we going to get the Cade Klubnik RPO looks where they're going to try and get him rolling out of the pocket? He's found himself in trouble a few of these matchups with the turnovers, as we talked about. But I think SMU's rush defense and defensive line can get home enough to make this a slower paced game because, as Jake mentioned, this is a Dabo Swinney defense. Like they've been in this spot before. They prepare for these ACC titles. Whether or not they back their way into it, it doesn't really matter. Dabo's going to have the group ready to go. They still have talent. We forget this Clemson team was absolutely dismantling 4 or 5 teams in the row in the middle of the season after everybody wrote them off early in the year. But here we are. 2 good teams, good brands that are good for college football to make their way in. I just hope for a competitive fun game to watch, because I feel like a lot of people are passing off the ACC with how bad Florida State was this year and so on and so forth. Same with the Big 12. So I just really hope this is an eye-opening experience for college football casuals who don't appreciate having the Power Four conferences and think it's just the SEC and Big Ten show. So I like the Mustangs up front because of what they can do up front. And I think Klubnik turns the ball over. But what do you think on this matchup, JP?
Yeah, I think there is this thought out there that with SMU's schedule, now they haven't played elite defenses in a lot of ways, right? Like this is the best one they've seen. And so I think there will be a little bit of a shock maybe on drive 1 or 2. And I think what Jake said, with Sellers and then Jennings, like if you are Lashley in this team, you cannot expect him to do those things. I don't think you want to put him in a position to have to make those kinds of plays. What I think that South Carolina Clemson thing was like balls to the wall. Clemson threw everything they had at it. That's like top effort. Like that's everything they had. And now they got to rebound and do it again against a similar team in the athlete ways. I'm not saying that SMU and South Carolina will level par, although I'm telling you SMU would give South Carolina a hell of a run and may even win that game. But what I'm saying is that Jennings is a different kind of quarterback. And so they don't want to put him in that situation. I feel like Jennings is a better passer with a better arm than Sellers is. I don't think he's got the same legs, but I don't think he has to be. Like he has support around him with Smith in the backfield, and then Jennings and Johnson. Like they are good when they're running the ball well. SMU is really good, and they have pieces on the outside. It's not an elite receiving core. It's not one, especially without RJ Maryland. They lost early in the year. It's not the same you expected to see, but it is an offensive line that has kind of hit their stride a little bit. They'll need to find a way to continue, like Jake's saying, to sustain drives and do that. On the defensive side of things, they cannot let Cade Klubnik do what he did in the Pitt game, at times in the South Carolina game, and then some other ones down the road where he had to bail them out late. They can't let that kind of thing happen. He can't get outside of the pocket and make things happen and bail them out of drives, because when Clemson's struggling, it's because of the offense and what they're doing. I think Maffa will have plenty of carries. I think they understand that the run game's got to work, but look out for Wesco and the other Clemson receivers to maybe get 1 or 2 big plays here. I think these two teams match up really well. Like, I think that's why the spread is where it is. I just think that Clemson's, a different team than what SMU's seen, and that's completely fine. I like SMU in this spot. I like Clemson to kind of get out and run a little bit to start and hit a groove, and SMU just to settle themselves in late. This is a team that hasn't been there before versus a team that feels like they have everything on the line. Simply because of the way they're going to be judged, not to their own fault. They haven't done anything wrong other than a loss to BYU early in the year. Clemson's got nothing to lose, man. Like, if they make the playoff, great at this point. If not, I feel like they kind of understand where they are. Disappointing, yes. But SMU has everything to lose. This game's got to be A, close, or B, just go win it. So I'll take SMU here in the 2.5. I think Jennings finds his groove. I think the run game kind of gets going. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I'm not saying this is going to be a sparkly, shiny offensive output by SMU or Clemson. I'm worried about Klubnik being consistent throughout this whole thing, right? He's been a lot better this year, not turning it over, but I think they get bottled up in some ways, and he just doesn't have the elite receiving core to go make plays for him. Because if they bottle him up and Maffa doesn't go off for 135, I don't like Clemson's chances to, again, go at it. And last week, man, like, you're kind of getting a shot of adrenaline. Like Jake said, like,
yeah,
you got to go do this again. Like, you put everything you had into that. And it just doesn't feel, I personally don't think you can get up and do it again.
Yeah. Like after the vibes of last week, like, how do you I don't know. Could you expect Ohio State to come back and play in a Big Ten title right now? I kind of,
and Lashley doesn't strike me as a guy who leads a program that's going to be scared of anybody. So,
no.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like
Absolutely
that's going to keep them in the game or win them the game, but it's going to do a lot more than you think it does, because shell shock and bright lights does do something to a quarterback.
They do have they have a common opponent. Like, they won at Louisville. Louisville went into Clemson and stomped them for pretty much. So it's I don't know. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
100%. With that, let's go into roundtable score predictions. Obviously, JP, you said you're on the SMU side of things. Fun fact before we get your score prediction: whoever wins this game will have the same amount of wins in Bank of America Stadium as the Carolina Panthers do. So, JP, with that, who's going to tie the Panthers for wins in Bank of America Stadium? SMU or Clemson?
I'll take SMU here. I think they win a low-scoring, ugly one. I'll go 24-20 SMU.
I like that. I'm going to put very, very similar numbers out there. I think SMU slows the game down, handles the run game like they've been doing. I think there's going to be a couple of turnovers on both sides, but ultimately SMU's talent will prevail. I think it is a great point from you guys that it's going to be tough for Clemson to get up in this game after taking the loss they did last week. I like SMU in this matchup, 27-21. That's closer than it is, but that's still a cover in an SMU ACC title, and they'll be in the college football playoff. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I want this team to get the recognition it deserves. Personally, my money is on the under. That's where I really want to go because I think this one's going to be kind of low scoring and ugly. Clemson's averaging less than 13 points a game in their 3 losses combined. So the offenses looked great against Virginia and some of those other teams, but
they were putting up ridiculous numbers against some of those.
And it got me. It got me for a little bit. Like Maffa was on a tear. And Klubnik can run the ball too, but we've seen it now versus 3 teams that are legit, that are ranked, have good defenses. And fool me 4 times? I don't know. So give me SMU.
All right. SMU across the board. Unanimous pick. Good job, Clemson. Congrats on your ACC title. But let's go back roundtable style. JP, who's the difference maker? Who is the guy that will be standing with the MVP trophy at the end of this matchup?
It's got to be Kevin Jennings. He's got to find a way to lead this team and not make too many mistakes. And I feel like as he goes, this offense goes. So if they're rolling and they find a way to win this, it's going to be because of him.
All right, Jake, I'm going down to you before I go. Who do you think will be the MVP in SMU's ACC title win, of your opinion?
It is basic, but I'm just backing it up with JP as well, because I think to beat a Clemson defense like this, like I've predicted, it's got to start with the playmaker under center. So it is just going to be Jennings for me because he doesn't have elite. I mean, the Smith kid at running back solid, but like they don't have elite guys at really any skill position, especially with Maryland hurt.
I feel like I got to go somewhere different, so I'm going to try and get a defensive guy in there. Obviously, they don't win MVPs often, but maybe with like an interception mixed in with a couple of tackles for loss and a sack, something crazy. But let's go leading tackler, Kobe Wilson on the SMU side of things. They've pounded the run all year, stopped it against every team they've played. They'll continue to do so. He'll have a big game. MVP and SMU's ACC title win. That is the ACC championship. Let's pause before we go into our final Power 4 preview. Let's hit the like button. Let's hit the subscribe button. We're in damn near 800. If you're not subscribed, you're stopping us. So hit the button. Jump on the train. This is Play the Fights on College Football show where we jump through all 134 teams. We preview them. We'll cover them. And we have the G5 Game of the Week preview dropping on our YouTube shortly. So you'll definitely want to see that one. All right, with that, let's go into the SEC. Let's head to Atlanta. Everybody wants to talk about this one, so let's talk about Hook'em. Let's talk about Georgia. Let's talk about Texas. This one's 3 o'clock on ABC, with Texas being a 3-point favorite after they got beat by 15 points by the Dogs earlier this season. Jake, break this one down for us.
Yeah, are you guys excited about this one? Like, if you had to skip, if you had to rank
make it lose steam a little bit. I don't know.
I'm
excited for it.
On the four
3
Power 4 champions, where are you ranking it? It's
3.
third.
3. That's behind the ACC in the Big 12 game.
Just because of Big 12 implications, or
and
because of playoff implications.
Both of them feel like they win it in, and then this one feels like they're both in. So it's like, who's going to show me they're ready to win a national?
Like a college football playoff scrimmage.
I think that's kind of where I want to start, JP. Like, who's going to show me they can win a national title? Because both teams are coming off weeks where both got good wins. I guess we'll give them the credit where it's due, but one side of the ball for both teams still lacked, in my opinion. I thought I think, and it could honestly start with both offenses. Actually, you look at some of the struggles that Texas had. We knew Texas A&M was going to present a tough defense at home with that environment. Still turned over the ball too many times, I think, for my pleasure. And then for Georgia, 17-0 in the first half. Like, you're not going to be able to do that against Texas and recover from that. So which offense plays clean football in this matchup? Last time we saw these two teams in Austin, it was more so, I guess, I don't know if you say it was Georgia because Carson Beck threw 4 picks. But, so it's like, what are you going to expect from these offenses here? And honestly, how is Texas going to respond from the Georgia defensive line? Like, is Michael Williams going to just create havoc once again? Is Quinn Ewers fully healthy? Second half of last week, he kind of felt like he was starting to, like, the adrenaline was starting to kick in and he was starting to get comfortable. So that's interesting to me. And if I look at Texas, it's the injury status of Kelvin Banks. The Gooseby kid, I think is his name, who went in for him. I saw he still gave up 0 pressures and 0 sacks. So he replaced the NFL caliber tackle really well, but I still want Kelvin Banks in if I got him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that starts with me, but it's hard for me to look at this matchup and, like, both offenses could play terribly and they're still going to find a way to win, because that's exactly what happened the first time.
I think one of the stories of the second half of college football is Texas's defense. I mean, you hear about their weapons all the time and the big time recruits they can get, the Quinn Ewers, the Arch Manning, the weapons they have on the outside, the Wingos, the preseason expectations from their wide receiving transfers. How about this defense, though? How good have they been up front throughout the entire season? Great point there as I'm adding on to it. But this defense, I mean, number 2 in the country in points per game. They're only giving up just over 10 points a game. Number 1 in the country when it comes to yards per play, 3.1 yards per play. I mean, it's an elite unit. It's what's made them so dominant throughout the season, what ranked them number 1 throughout majority of the year until they ran into this Kirby Smart group. But the second time around, it's incredibly hard to beat a team twice. You always hear that in sports. You've seen them before. You know what to expect. With how many strides this Texas defense has taken, they're going to be even more prepared to take over a 2024 turnover-prone Carson Beck and convert offensively. I think, you mentioned Quinn Ewers being banged up, but we also didn't mention Quinn Ewers coming back from being banged up and missing time in this first matchup. I think one of the keys to the game for Texas on the offensive side of the ball against a really good Kirby Smart defense, once again, who lacked last week, and you got to expect them to respond in a Georgia top team in the country level way this week against Texas, is the offensive line when it comes to the Longhorns. I mean, you give up 7 sacks in this first matchup, and that was really the difference in it, because Texas runs the ball well, but the running yards in that game really were around the 50-yard mark because Quinn Ewers was sacked 7 times, and he had negative 26 yards because of those sacks. So if Texas's offensive line can step up and at least protect Ewers enough time to not get hit, throw a couple interceptions like he did in the first matchup, you got to think Texas's defense can carry them to a close win in the rematch. But nonetheless, both of these teams probably deserve to get in and will get in. But I like Texas in the rematch in this spot because of their defense. What do you think, JP?
I think both defenses are good. And I think Texas defense was good same that week as well. I just think they got thrown into a situation it was hard to be successful in. Like 30 points doesn't show me how well that defense played that day. It comes down to the quarterback position. Can Quinn find a way to handle the pressure a little bit better? And I truly do think Sark's going to be ready for this the second time around and understand what Georgia's going to do. Because even if it worked for Georgia, they're not going to change it up. The idea of what they're going to do and try to get pressure on Ewers is going to stay the same. Now, it may be a more unique look, it may be disguised a little bit differently, but I think Sark will be there ready for it. Now, am I getting Carson Beck that's feeling more comfortable within himself with weapons like Delpa things, or am I getting the Carson Beck that has reared its ugly head multiple times? Like it's a lot of bad interceptions and a really bad streak that he went through. I'm more worried. I truly am. If this becomes less turnover, less predicting the bounce of ball, this becomes head-to-head, clean football game, limited turnovers, limited penalties, I'm a little more worried in Georgia continually to move the football field up and down, or the football up and down the football field the entire game. Like it's 1 or 2 drives. It's not going to be 4 or 5 consecutive really good ones. That's my worry. I think Texas, in a lot of ways, is going to be more prepared and have just that little more oomph to them, right? And like just understanding that they kind of got, slapped around in Austin, and it left a sour taste in their mouth. And Georgia will be ready to go. Kirby's teams are always ready to go. There'll be plenty of bulletin board material for him to be screaming in the locker room, and I'm sure we'll get some great clips from that. Both these teams are national title contenders. Both these teams deserve to be in the playoff, but I'm going to take the quarterback that's had less problems. I'm going to take the defense that's been more consistent throughout the year, and I'm going to take, I'm not going to count on turnovers, but I'm not going to count on Carson Beck not doing it. So I'm going to take Texas here, but I've bounced back and forth all week because I could see this just being the same old, and Ewers not being healthy, and they have to scramble to find something that's working.
It's so fun because in the SEC title, we've kind of seen it in years past where one team's automatically in because of the way their season went, and the other team can get into the 4-team playoff with a win. And we've seen Alabama take down Georgia in this fashion. But it'll be interesting to see how these two teams play, pretty much knowing that they're in either way with how the committee works and having 12 teams. So we'll see how that goes. But let's go roundtable style. Who wins? Who covers? Who's the difference maker? Jake, I'm going down to you first, but quick shout out to our boy GA. He's got Texas winning along with us. Gunnar Helm. He says SEC Player of the Year, tight end at Texas with the
Play of the game.
Yep. I mean, late touchdown would definitely earn him some MVP honors. But what do you think, Jake? Who wins? Who covers? Who's the difference maker?
All of the vibes lean Texas to me.
You used vibes a lot tonight. It's a vibe sport for you tonight.
It's a vibes weekend. What coordinator, what play caller do I trust to make better adjustments in this rematch? I give the hand to Sark over Mike Bobo. But even though this quarterback says he doesn't watch football, he must be watching some film because he's been getting a lot better. Carson Beck hasn't thrown a pick in his last 3 games. I took him against Ole Miss when they were underdogs. I think they were underdogs in Texas the first time. And then I took Texas that week. Can't fool me 3 times. How many times do I get a chance to pick Georgia as an underdog? I will take the dogs as the underdog.
All right. I will take the other side of things. I like Texas in this matchup because of what I saw last week with Georgia was a couple things. Yes, you win the game. It's a rivalry game. I get it goes differently sometimes. Doesn't really, you throw the records out the window, whatever they say. But Georgia got away with a lot to score their 47 points. They got away with a ton of holding. They got away with a couple of legal formations, and it led to their win. I think Georgia's offensive side of the ball, whether or not Carson Beck's throwing picks, if he gets those holding calls, it's going to move that offense back. But I don't think Georgia has that one standout guy that's been the difference maker for this team throughout the entire season. They're young at the receiver position. They lost Brock Bowers. So this team's seen some struggles offensively because of that. They don't really have that go-to guy or that absolute incredible back to get them through a 3rd and 3 situation. It doesn't matter because you can't stop them. And with that, Texas defense and their offensive weapons who have been playing together now, and Ewers is at least more experienced than he was the last time coming off injury, will be enough to get it done, claim the SEC title their first year in. So put me on the piggyback of Oregon, SMU, and Texas winning their conference titles the first year in. I like the Longhorns in this matchup. And yeah, that hurts for me to say with the helmets behind me, but it is what it is. What do you think, JP?
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas here. I kind of think that if somebody's going to go win this thing for them, the run game is going to have to go run it for them. And I'm going to take the Quintravion, right? I say that right?
I think his first name. Said it right. I'd give you credit.
Quintravion Wisner. I think like the kid's kind of come out of nowhere and been a better back for him throughout the year. And he had a really good game at A&M. Going to have to do it again. Him or the blue kid are going to have to be good and get that run game going. So one of them will end up being player of the game. But I'll take Texas low score and close. Again, hard to beat them twice. I had Texas preseason my SEC title or champion. I'm not going to fall off that right now.
All right, there it is. The SEC title, 2-1 in favor of the spread. The Longhorns are a 2.5 point favorite. We'll see how that one goes in Atlanta on Saturday afternoon. All right, with that, that wraps up the Power 4 conference title previews. We went a little longer tonight, but before we go, we have to tell you our G5 preview of the week will be the rematch between the Rebels and Broncos for the Mountain West title game. We will preview that one in a separate YouTube video, so check that one out live on our channel tonight and tomorrow, and we will fully break down that one. Now let's go over to best bets. Let's talk best bets who went 4-0 again last week, including Reese's pick. The boys have rolling. That's 8-0 in their last 8 picks. Mark that down. So let's stay hot with it. Let's go best bets of the weekend. Obviously a smaller slate, so you're going to have to pick and choose. Yeah. What do you think it is, Jake?
JP, you're probably thinking Oregon. I don't want to steal your Oregon pick. I got a lot.
That's my best bet.
I'll go Louisiana. Again, you want to talk vibes? How about the guy who's rumored to leave your team for a lesser team, nonetheless, in Huff, being rumored to go to Southern Miss the day of your conference
Mhm.
title. So Louisiana's got, I think, a ton to play for. A Sun Belt title would be a massive win this year for that program, who was kind of picked to be in the middle. So I less than a touchdown. I think it's like 5.5. You're laying it with Louisiana. I'm all in on that one.
All right. That's an interesting pick. I'm going to take a little bit of a different one. This one's probably not as popular with the way people are high on Tulane. And I don't pick against the Green Wave often, but give me Army minus the 5 in the American title game. Tulane had a bad loss last week against a
Plus
good
the 5.
Memphis team. A talent. I'm sorry. Yeah, plus the 5. Thank you, Jake. But against a talented Memphis team, but a team that struggled all year defensively, they only put up 24 points against them as a pretty heavy favorite. So I like Army to keep building on what they've had this year outside of the Notre Dame game, and all the armed forces can say that. But I like Army to win the American title and do it as an underdog. So I like Army plus the 5, not as my dog's dog, because I don't necessarily know if they'll win it outright, but I like them to at least cover the number against the Green Wave. What do you think? JP, you said Oregon on yours. Care to explain?
Yeah, that's my best bet. Yeah, I don't think Penn State, this is the matchup they wanted to see in this situation. So I up to a touchdown.
I don't think they expected to be in this situation. So
yeah, I think a lot of Penn State players found out they were in this game like at 1 o'clock. Somebody sent a text like, "Hey man, we got a Big Ten title game next weekend." So maybe they prepared differently.
What's the response going to be like if Penn State actually wins this from like Michigan and Ohio State fans to James Franklin being like, "Yeah, buddy, you lost to Ohio State?
Told you.
Play Michigan. Still doesn't count. You haven't beaten us yet. Still doesn't count."
Oh, it would be quite the sight to see if Penn State were to win that game. But that's a good pick. Let's go to the dog's dog to finish tonight's show. Jake, I'll let you lead it off. A lot of close spreads, so you're basically just picking who you think will win as an underdog this week.
Let me scroll through the comments here. I think somebody said it. Oh yeah, Justin said it. I don't know.
Yeah, your brother, your blood brother.
The Oregon, don't know. The Oregon money line. How about Cyclones plus the 2? Take a money line. Do whatever you got to do. That's our dogs.
It's a short slate, so I got to give it some slack. But put me on that one as well. I'm cheering for him. I said this all year. I'm not really a Husker Iowa State hater, but I mean, like I said in the past, Daddy doesn't get mad when his son does well. So I really hope Iowa State can finish this one.
Don't you start there.
I have
a question. I've been meaning to say it. I was going to ask. I didn't know if JP and Parks, were you guys going to shake hands before we got started tonight? Or were you just gonna...
what? We never went at each other. It was a cordial preview.
No, did you miss the joke?
I got the joke.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Ha. I mean, I haven't done my Husker video this week, but I will comment on that if I need to lightly here. I don't love it. I just hate it from a different perspective than
somebody
the class thing.
Somebody said they did it. They've done it every game. Is that true?
That's not true at all. They do the prayer at midfield every game. That was and Matt Rule walks across the field. Those two things they do every game. The handshake thing has not been done at Nebraska, I think, in 40 years. So I don't know.
They did that last
Matt Rule came out today and said it was not planned. He didn't even know of it until social media after the game. So
sons of bitches. Justin has a comment here before JP, you give your pick. I think it's a good one. If Georgia and Penn State win, is Penn State the number 1 seed? I would say yes. You beat the number 1 team. And you only have 1 loss.
Man, I could see them putting Georgia in there though.
I could see them doing that. And I could also see some stupid scenario where they put Notre Dame as the number 1 seed. I mean, you got to remember they don't have to play this weekend, and they already moved up. So,
but they'd be the 5 anyway. You can't have a bye.
You can have a bye. They can have a bye.
Notre Dame cannot have a bye.
Like
you have to win a conference title.
Yeah,
they just with the way they signed up for it, they agreed to it.
That's so stupid. Make him join a conference. Make him join a conference.
I don't think they want.
I don't know if the teams. I don't know if the teams that have a bye are at an advantage. That's why I say that. I don't know if they're at an advantage, to be honest with you. But all right, let's go. Where did I leave off? JP, time for your dog's dog.
Give me Ohio, the Bobcats here. Hard to beat a team twice. Miami, Ohio.
There's the greasy one.
I'll have the better defense here and a team that feels like they're feeling really good about themselves. I know Miami, Ohio had to go through it late in the year to get into this spot, beat a good Bowling Green team, but I'll take Ohio.
Yeah, that went against our pick from last week. Our G5 of the game last week, we did not hit that one on the nose. Miami of Ohio spoiled Bowling Green's title hopes. That's unfortunate turn of events there. But all right, that is everything for tonight. We covered a lot. We went through coach firings and hirings, the transfer portal, our college football playoff discussion, and then the Power 4 previews. Check out our G5 preview, which will be live on YouTube late tonight, as well as early tomorrow morning. Give that a listen. Give that a look. ShopNoRivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all your premium collegiate headwear. Hats dropping by the day. NIL collections. They just dropped a new clothing line that looks pretty sweet. I'll let you know how comfortable it is when it comes in for us. But we appreciate them. ShopNoRivals.com today. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. We love you. We'll see you next time to talk about the college football playoff. Bowl season is upon us. Those bowl games matter. Don't let your bitch ass think anything differently. We'll cover all of those. Sorry to end the night on a hurtful note, but hit the subscribe button. We love you. We'll see you next week. Jake, take us away.
See you next time. Play it.